it's Tina Sibley here, and in this video I want to describe to you why I think, in my opinion, the value ladder is flawed. Okay, so what is the value ladder? The value ladder is simply a ladder outlining your range of products and services, from free and really low cost tripwire products at the bottom end to your high ticket and VIP offerings at the top end. It's similar to what's been taught for many years to the product funnel, again, where you start with all the free products and you attract people with free, one-to-many, free reports, free ebooks, free videos, free Facebook Lives, etc., 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 and then gradually bring them down into a funnel where you've got passive income products all the way up again to the VIP high end. But this is where I believe that it's flawed, okay? The teaching says that you start with the free and the tripwire, and that you build a relationship with these people before you start upselling them. Now, some people say that it's a bit like dating, and trying to sell your highest priced product to somebody right out of the gate is a bit like asking somebody to sleep with them on the first date. But I don't believe that that is true. I believe that it's not like dating at all. It's kind of, if somebody has a problem, if somebody has a real need for a product, they're going to buy the best that they can afford to deal with that immediately. They're not going to want to wait to go through a courting process to get their hands on the solution that they need to fix the problem as fast as possible. Okay. Now, I get where the kind of dating analogy comes in. So if you end up, talking to somebody, you're not going to go straight in there with, buy my stuff the minute you start talking to them. You're going to go through a process through that conversation. But that is just the process of the conversation, not the entire thing, if you've got a really wealthy person who, wants to buy a car, they're going to buy the best that they can afford. Okay, so I'll explain this in a bit more detail as we go through. But this is what everybody is teaching, that you start at the bottom and then you work your way up towards the top. Now, here is, again, some of the problem with this. A lot of this follows the 80-20 rule, okay? So if we're following the 80-20 rule, 80% of the people who get your free and your tripwire stuff will buy your low ticket items. 20% of those will then move up, and so on and so forth. But this is what happens when you start putting figures on this, okay? So based on 20% conversions, following the 80-20 rule, if you have 100 people in your, free tripwire bracket, 20 of those will buy a low ticket product from you. 20% of those, so 4, will buy your mid-range, and this is where it starts to fall down. 20% of those will move up the ladder, but that's like less than 1, okay? So you're not even getting 1 to buy the high ticket, let alone the VIP. And the big problem with that as well, that actually 20% conversion is really high. 10% is a lot more typical. In fact, in a lot of areas, it's lower than that. So let's have a look at it based on 10% conversions then. Once you start putting the numbers on, you can see that for 100 people, 10 are going to buy your low ticket, and only 1 is going to get your mid-range. Forget the high ticket and the VIP. So it becomes really difficult. And this is where you get trapped down that low end of the ladder, and you end up trying to entice people to come into your low ticket by offering more and more value, and you get stuck. The other problem with this is that once you've got, a lot of people down this end, actually it's a myth to say that this is passive income. Okay, these people still need looking after. There's still going to be forgotten passwords, technical difficulties. I can't find this. Where do I find that? And all that kind of stuff. And that gets bigger the more you want to make. So let's say, okay, let's see, you know, let's see how I can make this work. The only way of getting people up the ladder is to feed more people in down at the bottom. So let's say we've got 1,000 people here now. Yeah, you can see we're beginning to get more results up that top end, but it's still not very much. So, you know, let's ramp the efforts up even more. And let's kind of have a look at an audience of 10,000. Okay, now we're getting somewhere. Now we've probably got, you know, the opportunity of getting 10 people into the high ticket and 1 person in the VIP, but it's still not an awful lot. And the problem is, now you've got an awful lot of people to look after, all right? And once you've got, say, an audience of 10,000, now if that's 10,000 on an email list, it's not quite so bad. But can you imagine having 10,000 in your Facebook group? How many of those are going to send you friend requests? So before long, you'll end up with your maximum 5,000 friends limit. And then you get people constantly sending you private messages. And all of a sudden, the private messages from your friends and family who you want to hear from, you kind of, it becomes like your email inbox. You don't see those, you know, buried amongst all the messages of people wanting free advice. Hey, can I just pick your brains on this? Can you just take a look at this for me? I'd love to know what your thoughts are on that. Please joint venture with me. I'd love, you know, it just becomes so unmanageable. Now I've not got those numbers in my group right now, but I can see already just by increasing the number of people that I've got in my group, how this is starting to escalate already. And I haven't even got 1,000 in my group at the time of recording this. So this is what made me kind of put a halt on things and think, okay, I've got to look at this more sensibly and look at a different way of doing it. So that different way of doing it is to turn it on its head. Okay, it's what I'm calling the inverted value ladder. And what you do is you start at the top. Now, I remember, way back when I was in the mid-80s, and I was selling insurance. I remember my insurance sales manager telling me it's far easier to ski downhill than it is to try and ski uphill. You know, so you start with your most expensive products, and then if people can't afford it, you start to ski down. And then this also works with desire. So if you've got somebody, like I said earlier, if you've got somebody who has a problem and they want it fixed, they're going to spend, you know, as much money as they can on getting it fixed, or at least they, you know, if they've got it, they're going to spend it. If you've got somebody, say, in the market for a car and they're very, very wealthy, if you offer them a cheap, low-end budget motor, they're just going to ignore you. They're going to turn their nose up at you. They're not interested in that. So basically, you become somebody that they're not interested in. Okay? They can afford a Maserati, so they're going to go and buy a Maserati. They're not going to start with this, you know, courting process that people talk about to build trust. They're not going to go, oh, well, this dealer, let's see if I like working with them. We will start off with a Skoda, and then if all goes well with that, then I'll trade it in, and then I'll get a BMW, then I'll trade that in, and I'll get, I don't know how the car ladder might look, but no, if they've got the money, they will buy immediately a Maserati. If they can't afford that, it doesn't stop them wanting it. But what happens then is that, you know, the dealer might say, well, okay, well, the next thing that we've got is this little beauty here. This is, I don't know, I don't know cars that well, so I don't know, let's say the highest spec, I don't know, BMW or something of that nature that there is out there. So it's not quite it's not a Maserati, but, you know, it's the next best thing sort of thing. So then, yeah, they'll go, yeah, I can afford that. That's great. And now they see that they're getting a good deal. Okay, and then if they can't afford that, they'll offer maybe the same model, but perhaps not with the same specification. So it'll start coming down, and eventually you ski down until you get to a point where the customer can afford it. Now, here's the thing: when you start at the top and you build desire for your highest priced product, people go, oh my God, I want that, and if I had the money, I would spend it. But then when you offer the next thing down, it becomes a bargain, rather than if you start at the bottom and you put it up, it's like suddenly you're hiking prices and there's a lot of teeth sucking and, oh, that's an awful lot more expensive, I'm not sure I want to do that. But if you start at the top and start coming down, as you bring the price down, and you take away the frills and the luxury, they still get their hands on a core product. It's still a car. It's still going to get them from A to B. It still might have a music system in there, and it might be a nice colour and all the rest of it. Suddenly now they're starting to think, yeah, that's a bargain. I like that. I'll have it. Yes, please. Okay. So it's a different psychology when you're skiing downhill to when you're skiing uphill. And the other thing is you don't rule out the Maserati people, because that's where you start. Just because you start at Maserati level, though, you don't automatically rule out these people down there, because they still aspire to it and they will still follow you. And that is the difference. And that is why I say the traditional value ladder of starting here and going upwards is flawed. Here's the great thing as well, when you have one client. When you have one client, you can include absolutely everything that you have in your arsenal to get a result for them. And it's all about results. The more you're able to show results, the more likely you are to become attractive to your customers. Okay, so you can even include things which don't currently fall under your present remit. So up until recently, I've been focusing a lot on the webinar presentation side of things, for example. But in order to make a webinar really successful, you need so many things, which is why I created my ultimately, profitable webinar blueprint. And that follows the 5P. So it's all about, promotion. You've got to get your bums on the seats. Now, I can train people what to do there. I can tell them what they need to do. And part of that might be that they need to do an Facebook ads campaign. I'm not a Facebook ads expert, but it doesn't mean to say I can't offer this as part of my ultimate VIP client thing. I can say, right, I'll do all of this for you, including the Facebook ads campaign, including the copywriting, including all the analyzing and split testing, etc., etc., etc. And not only will we set it all up for you in the first place, but we'll do it we'll analyze it and test it on a monthly basis, month by month, so that after a 6-month period, you have something which is predictable, and you put money in at the front end, and it will churn out a return of investment at the back end. Okay, so you're more likely to get better results, which is more attractive. And you just outsource the bits you can't do. Okay, so one VIP client, this is the other thing it's going to do, is it's going to give you the revenue to outsource the extra bits. Okay, so you basically just build that in. You say, right, we do the whole thing for you, and we'll outsource the bits, that are necessary. It also gives you a budget to advertise, so that you get more people. And here's the thing: it costs the same amount of money to do an advert, whether you're targeting people with loads of money or people with no money. That's just like, so why wouldn't you advertise aiming at the higher level client to start with? And then what you only need, like the first one to get you out of the starting gate, and that gives you the revenue to get the results, get the testimonials, do more advertising, and so on and so forth. So then it makes it so much more easier to come down the hill, and then you start advertising your next offering down. You've got results because you've been working with this person or a couple of these people here, etc., etc. And by the time you start coming down here, you've now got the revenue to pay a team to look after the people at the lower end. I mean, how cool is that? So now you can outsource the work to a VA to look after all of those forgotten and lost passwords, and all of the questions about when's the next meeting, when's the next coaching session, where will I find this in the training, and looking after the student Facebook group and all that kind of thing. Yeah? How cool is that? So you have a dedicated team member able to look after that side of things for you, and then you just look after the questions related to the content. So you can get rid of a lot of the technical headaches. You can even pay somebody to put together you know the course. You can say, well, I've got the material, it's all recorded, it's all you know, sat on my computer, and you pay somebody to upload it into a membership site for you. You can pay somebody to, you know, do all your sales pages and your landing pages and your copywriting and all that, which is like really super cool. And this is the next part, which is superb. All right, having started at the top and coming down, you've now got the budget to advertise at all levels, so you can build a large audience at the bottom end, and then you go back up the ladder again. So this is kind of almost like the equivalent of you kind of start at the top. So hopefully if you're on a skiing holiday, you start off with your chalet at the top, you ski down the slope, and then you get the chairlift back up again. So you can advertise. Now you've got the money and the team in place to advertise, so that you have a large enough pool at the free and tripwire end to take some of those people back up the ladder with you. Okay, and then it becomes a cycle, and it becomes a predictable money-making machine. I mean, how cool is that? So how do you start this process? That's the big question. If you're caught already in that trap at the bottom end, how do you turn it up on its head? Okay, here's the bit you're not going to like. You actually have to stop speaking to the people down at the bottom here. Now, if you've already got a group of people who are down at this level following you, you might have an email list or a Facebook group. It doesn't mean to say that you suddenly kind of stick two fingers up at them and ignore them. You know, these people have looked after you up until now. They've given you a level of income up until now, so you still need to look after them. But here's what you do. You stop using your copy at this level. You stop producing content for these levels. You start producing content for the top of the range. You start talking their language. You start talking their pain points. These pain points are going to be very different to the pain points of the people down here. Okay, so you just start talking up here, and you know, you stop answering all those personal private messages of people asking to pick your brains down at the bottom end. You know, it's hard because that, you know, it's in our nature to, you know, want to respond to people. It's in our nature to want to help people, but you have to stop it, otherwise you'll never have the time to put together what you need to do to come up this end of the ladder. So you actually have to now start looking at engaging with a different type of person. There are people out there who can afford your high-level products and services. You just have to go out there and look for them, and you just have to bring them onto your radar. You have to put yourself on their radar, and you're only going to do that by starting to talk about what you do at that top end. All right, so that's what you need to do. So I hope you found that useful, and I look forward to hearing how you get on. Please do, you know, put any comments. Go, if you're not a member of my Facebook group, head on over to the group. I'll put the button below this article, and yeah, go on over to my group, and I look forward to hearing your thoughts on it.